Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, and welcome to this morning's A Different Perspective. I am so excited and glad and honored and every emotion you could possibly have as a human being that you have joined us this morning. We had just an absolutely incredible week. Can't wait to share with you all the great things that have happened this week. But I always want to thank you guys for joining the show because I am so surprised when we sit down in our weekly meetings with our amazing media team that's surrounded all behind the cameras that you guys can't see, and the stats and the people watching it from all the countries across the world. So welcome. I love the fact that we have foreign countries and people that are local, everybody. It's actually kind of exciting to see you guys do that. That being said, is one thing that is happening when it comes to our website, the Wellness Way website, is our subscriptions are going crazy. What I mean by that is this, is we have more people subscribing to our website every day. As you can see in this video here, this is how you do it. It's quite simple. Just go on to the wellnessway.com, type in your email down below, subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, but it keeps you updated as I'm looking at everything that we have on our, see right there, our articles and everything that there. Type in, you get that. It's quite incredible. You get to see all the wonderful things that we are doing here at the Wellness Ways across the world, but also locally here. And it's kind of nice. I'm not joking. I always love popping on our own newsletter that we get every week. I kind of look at this and I'm like, oh my goodness, we have the most incredible, talented people there is, period. That being said, for you guys that are watching, you're watching on multiple platforms right now, and the multiple platforms you'll see Patrick, Dr. Patrick, one of our interns here. He's going to be answering questions and doing stuff that he's here. So good morning, Patrick. Hope you're doing well and stuff. And we're on our Wellness Way page. We're on our Wellness Way YouTube and Facebook page. So when you guys do interact with us, we do have somebody there to do it. And also, most of you guys are watching on our website, adp.thewellnessway.com, and you can watch the show live and interact with us and have questions answered during time, and that's kind of incredible. Now, with that being said, we had Dr. Patrick there as an intern. He's interning here for months, but also we had another intern start. I want her to come on up here, Dr. Carolyn Conley. She's from the East Coast. She's just going to come step next to me to her and give a little wave to you guys and say hi to all of her family that you have done a wonderful job with this amazing doc. She was part of our student program, and now she's, when do you graduate?
October.
October. So she graduates and she will be, come in a little closer. There you go. So she graduates in October, and then she's going to practice in the southern area of our wonderful United States. And but welcome. It's a great having you here. She's her first week interning, so it's going to be nice. You'll be here training in October. So if you are in the local area and you come in, say hi to Dr. Carolyn. It'll be nice to see you. So wonderful having you, Doc.
Thanks, Doc.
Yeah. So that being said, we have interns. We have people from all over. But the one thing that's the most exciting to me by far is the fact that, and it relates to some things we're talking about today, is if you go to our website and you go to the Find a Clinic section that you can see right here. People always say, Doc, how do we find your doctors? Well, go to the Wellness Way website, click on Find a Clinic. You'll see the listed, you list who's there. You get to see who's in each office that way. And it's great because we have an array of docs of all ages. Someone as young as Dr. Carolyn and some as old as me, being 47 years old. It's kind of crazy. I've been doing this so long. Some of the new docs come out could be my kids. That's crazy. I'm like, I still feel like I'm a kid. So I still feel like I'm running around going 100 miles an hour, but actually having these wonderful docs there, it's absolutely fantastic. Now, that being said, as we talked about, we have our two major things we're going live from today. You can see we have the Wellness Way page, but also, if you can see over to your left on the screen, we now have our new Dr. Patrick Facebook page. We're going to start going live on there once a week on the Ask Me Live section, just for question and answers. You can be a patient. You don't have to be a patient. You can just actually have some other questions you want. I'm going to start to interact on that page. I want you guys to understand that it's great for me to constantly have things like this where I get to teach in a longer form platform that way and bring you a great show. But I do like very intimate interactions. So that's why we like to do lives, because we'll literally be sitting right here, and actually I'll have the computer, we'll have our other team in there, and we'll be going through questions and answers, because sometimes you just have some questions about yourself or even a family member, so we want to get to those. One thing that we did for some reason, I don't know why, our Instagram just has blown up like crazy. I think we added like 80,000 followers over the last couple weeks because we've been doing some pretty cool reels and everything. So remember, if you're on Instagram, Go there. We do a live there every week. Also, it's a little different kind of live. It's rapid fire or fire and answer kind of questions that way. But it's kind of great because it allows me to actually just give you some quick answers. Now remember, as I give you guys quick answers, it's all based on with the information you give me and some things that could help right away. The Ask Me Live, it'll be a little bit more detailed. I'll probably talk about some things. I'll probably even show some labs and things like that we can go over. I had a person recently said, Doc, you could actually, on Ask Me Live, you could actually just take my lab and show it. I don't even care if you see the name, because I'm always private. I don't like to show people's names and everything. But I actually had a guy reach out and said, I don't care. He goes, I just want to see what you'd say live. I said, okay, then we'll do that. Now, that being said, if you do have a question that you want me to do a live, you go to askdrpatrick@thewellnessway.com, and that's where it comes from. Now, when you have those comes in, it's quite interesting the things that I get. And I'm going to share some of the things I get with you guys when I get emails, because I want to show you something that is quite heartbreaking. But the reason why I do these shows is for multiple things. I always sit back and go, who's out there sick and suffering? And maybe somehow this information will get to them. That's why we try to be on all platforms, regardless if we get kicked off or not. And that's why I always tell people, no matter what you're doing, please do me a favor. Go to the website, subscribe. Remember, there is no cost. You see, and what it is just you get all of our information sent to you when I'm going live, when I'm doing certain things. And then also you get to interact with me, because it's not a joke. I read probably, I would say 90% of the emails. Not all of them. I wish I had the time to do that, but it's not possible for as many emails that we have come in. But I do read them, and I do respond to them, and I do try to guide you guys on some ventures, because it's really frustrating getting emails like this, but I want to show it to you. So let's take a look. Here it is. Now, as you know, once again, somebody sends me an email. I try to block out names and things like that, but let's take a look here. Interests, connect with Dr. Patrick. Dr. Flynn, we have a 30-year-old daughter that has been sick basically all her life. All right, Travis, come back to me on this. Do you understand that is a recurring theme that happens to all of our clinics? If you go to wellnessway.com, type in find a clinic, and if you're blessed to have an amazing office close to you, that's fantastic. But you know, some of this, you're going to see we don't have an office close to this person as we get into the email, but this is a common theme. Now, I want you to think about this. This person's 30 years old, and their daughter's been sick basically her whole life. Now, we get into detail in this, understand that most people have doctors they've seen her whole life. And that's why, as I talk about having such a different perspective, we're going to end today's show on an email to show you what happens, why people need to watch a show and why I need to get to them, and why we constantly are hiring amazing people. Kyle and I were just talking about before is, we just added Travis, added a bunch more great people up here. As the information gets out there, you're going to see the impact that we have just by you sharing the information. So if you're on Facebook right now, like it, share it. If you're on YouTube right now, share it, put a like there, because more people get to see it. But this is why, because people are sick their whole life. Let's go on, Travis. We have searched and prayed for guidance and often thought we have perhaps found something that will help her. But after a brief improvement, she goes backwards again. In short, she has difficulty breathing. Her lungs are way below normal capacity, and as she ages, they get worse. For 18 years, we lived in the West Michigan, in the Muskegon area. We moved to Central Kentucky 10 years ago, seeking a sunnier climate, thinking this will help our daughter, but since then, she has only gone backwards overall. There are times when she is better for a time, but always ends up with the congestion and really tight cough. This summer has been battling fever and chest pain. The doctors have all said her heart is strong. Her pulmonary doctor advises her to use all the oxygen she wants to. As a result, it seems she's only more dependent. She can never sleep at night without being on oxygen. Often daytime use is the norm. Her household activities she so much enjoyed are becoming less and less frequent. She loves cooking for others and making special dishes, which she often doesn't get to taste before because of her health. Much of her life, she's been on restricted diets. We are becoming desperate as we see her losing out, it seems, to us. Often she has to relax when she's congested because there's just not enough oxygen to sustain her, and if she becomes anxious, it increases her breathing difficulty. What can we do to help us? What can you do to help us? I know this short letter leaves you with many questions, but you are welcome to ask questions, and we will try to answer them. My brother, and I blocked his name out, has recommended you as he says they were helped. We live in central Kentucky, but we are willing to travel, meet you if there what we need to do. I'm waiting to hear from you. Thank you, Mark. I actually got that this morning. No joke. As you can see up in the corner, they sent it at 12:58 a.m. I woke up to this. This is the world that I live in, this world that my doctors live in on a regular basis. The sick and suffering people that will reach out in the middle of the night for people suffering. And that's why we need a different perspective, because here's what happens this. I'm going to respond to Mark. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to make sure that his daughter gets on the right track. You say, Doc, with the limited information, do you believe that you can actually make a difference to that person? Absolutely, I do. I'll tell you right now. As you guys know, I try to always speak in some generalities, but with more of the sick and suffering people out there, I will be a little bit more direct on camera, because I know there's people watching that want to try to fact check and say, well, he thinks he can help anything. Well, actually, I'm going to say something very boldly. If you reduce inflammation in anybody, a child, an adult, sick and suffering, a cancer person, they're going to have a better life. They're going to have a better life. You can't move a person to a less inflammatory state, in a regenerative state, and not have their life better. Well, will we know if all of our lung conditions will go away? Don't know yet. You say, that's the great thing about being a doc, is the fact that I'm going to investigate, see what we can do. Do I believe with everything she's going through that this young lady will be able to breathe better? With all my heart and soul. It's not a joke. With all my heart and soul, I do. And guess what happens? I'm going to reach out to Mark. I'm going to discuss things with him. Hopefully we can get him under the care of one of our wonderful doctors somewhere very soon, and actually watch his daughter live a life that has been suffering for 30 years, all right? And the reason why I can stand with such great confidence is actually because of this right here. Doing this for so long now, I realize that the perspective that most people have, I get it. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the medical field. I'm okay with the things that they're doing and saying. I just think it's come from a different perspective. People sit there and argue, it's a circle, it's a square. I'm like going, well, I have a different perspective when it comes to that. Now, that being said, we're going to move into our perspective portion of the show, because today what we decided to do is we decided to have an interview with one of our past people that came on, recently reached out, and we want to get him back on because there's some updates that's had. Nice thing about the show, we have such a worldwide audience. People love being on our show because it gives them a platform to be able to share some things. And of course, I'm always going to be a little bit direct when it comes to the past couple of years, but some of the things that we had predicted and things that came true, we're not happy that they did. But you can tell over the last couple of years, as things have progressed with everything going on, as you know, I'm speaking kind of generalities right now, is the fact that, listen, they caused a lot of devastation, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering for a lot of people out there. And the sad part is there's no accountability right now. And so we're excited to now move into our perspective, because even though this doc has a different education than I do, what happens is he's a very brilliant man. I was excited to have him back on. So let's go into our perspective, our Wellness Way approach perspective now. So the nice thing about a different perspective, it gives us an opportunity to share a form of healthcare that is really that leads people to a way better life. Now, the great thing is, a friend of our show and a great doctor, Dr. Peter McCullough, as you can see here, his background is extensive. I just tell people, go to his website, and you can see that, listen, he is an absolutely incredible wealth of knowledge. He's one of the most published doctors in history when it comes to documentation and journaling. That's why when you actually hear that I read sometimes 5 to 10 journals per day, I will tell you there isn't usually a day that doesn't go by that I'm not reading a published article by Dr. Peter McCullough. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play. We interviewed him for about 40 minutes. It's absolutely incredible. Listen to the words that he says. You'd be surprised how he is in the medical field for well over 30 years. He has an extensive background, has been published massively on everything from cardiovascular to epidemiology and everything. And he's going to cover some of that. We're going to get a little update, because even though that he is an incredible scientist and researcher and actually a practicing doc on a daily basis, you'd be surprised what he's going through right now. So enjoy this wonderful interview with Dr. Peter McCullough. Well, once again, I'm so excited to have back, in my opinion, and I think many people's opinions across the world, not only one of the most scientifically documented doctors in the world, but the great thing is this: is he's brought so much over the last 2 years, what has been going on to our country. And he's got some updates from us because our last show with him, it just did so wonderful. People just loved everything you had to say. I think, Doc, I think the reason why people love you, from me being a doc to even the public, is you are so scientifically sound. Anybody that tries to fact check you, it's very, no, I love it that they do that because you're so clear and so precise, and and getting to know you, you keep emotion out of it. You really actually want people to get to science and then make their decisions. So why don't you give us an update since last time we had you on, I think it was about 4 or 5 months ago that way, and it was fantastic. How's everything been going? What have you seen happen over just publicly over the last time? I'm excited because you've been invited by one of the most favorite senators, Ron Johnson, to do some speaking and possibly come on Capitol Hill. But I want, for you guys that are maybe new to my audience that way, that's because Dr. McCullough, once again, is so well scientifically based. And I would like you to tell the crowd again how many scientific publications you have. And as we're going to show on the screen here, it's just numerous, and I've read so many of them. So welcome again, Dr. McCullough.
Well, thanks so much for having me on this show. So I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm a practicing internist and cardiologist in Dallas, Texas. I'm also trained in epidemiology, and I use those skills in my research practice. I see patients about half the time. The other half of the time, I'm a clinical scholar, former editor of two major journals, and like so many doctors in academic medicine, I stick to the scientific citations. Understand scientific data evolves and changes over time. But the thing that's guided me through the pandemic, and one of the reasons why I'm a frequent contributor on Fox and Newsmax and OAN and Victory Channel, ABC, is that I have been just precise with respect to the information so everybody can go evaluate it itself as it evolves over time. I'm very well trained on understanding validity and invalidity of scientific papers. And I think most importantly, I care about what's going on. The two bad outcomes are hospitalization and death with the pandemic viral infection. But now, with the novel mandated genetic products, we have a whole new array of diseases. And so now we end up with what we call injuries, disabilities, and deaths related to that exposure. So there's a lot to update. Let me just give you a big one. June 11th, 2022, the World Council for Health, which represents about 70 non-governmental organizations across the world, they're centered out of the UK, they issued a global recall of all the injectable mandated biologic products that are used right now, on an every 6 month basis, and in so many places mandated. They're actually calling for complete withdrawal of these because they surveyed 39 safety systems, four of which had large numbers of data and bad outcomes, particularly deaths. And they were the CDC VAERS system, the UK Yellow Card system, EU UDRA system, and the WHO VigiSafe system. In total, there's over 40,000 deaths that have occurred, typically within a few days of taking these. It's far too many. They pick every other example that's out there, typically a handful of deaths. There's a recall, something's gone wrong. 40,000 is absolutely unacceptable. So this is causing worldwide strife and upheaval, is people know they can lose their lives at the end of one of these hypodermic needles.
Doc, I got a question for you because I've watched you so much on, like I said, Fox and Rogan, everybody that way, and you made some very good. And I saw the journals that popped up when you were quoted on this. You talked about that if any medication had these kind of effects, these kind of negative effects, that it would be automatically pulled off the market. Can you explain that to people? Because if you as scientists are investigating medication and there's that many negative side effects that way, good scientists would pull it. So what's your backing on that?
Well, responsible pharmaceutical companies would pull it, and this is really important. Let's just take the United States as an example. Right now, we have agencies out of their usual regulatory roles. So the FDA should be the safety watchdog and drug advertising approval company, unit. The CDC should be an outbreak investigation unit. And instead, the CDC and FDA have been told to lead the program. So the FDA has completely left any safety uh, policing of the products at all. None. And so, for instance, with Pfizer, under court order, Pfizer was ordered to release their dossier. And the lawyer for the FDA did not want America to see the documents for 55 years. It was the FDA. So the FDA was actually working to block information to America. They were complicit, if you will, in releasing data that Pfizer knew about 1,223 deaths that occurred shortly after taking their product. This is far too many. Pfizer, if they would have gotten to a handful of deaths, they should have looked at it and said maybe the multi-use files are going wrong. There's contaminants in the product. Something is going wrong where large numbers of deaths were occurring in the public program, basically in December and January. And that's congruent with what we knew in our VAERS system. By January 22nd, we already had 182 deaths that had accrued. That was US, Japan, Germany, all the countries that report through our system, or that's viewable to our system. And we knew if all vaccines combined, same countries, that number shouldn't have gotten past 150. So January 22nd of 2021, we were over the line. I just testified in the Texas Senate on June 27th. And I said, listen, the alarm bells were going off. And we know through Freedom of Information Act request to the CDC was supposed to be doing safety reports once a month. Everybody should realize the CDC and FDA have produced no safety report to America on what's going on with the vaccines. How many people got them? How many reactions? What's happened? They should be analyzing and producing a safety report to guide people on how to take these safely. And they've completely abrogated any of their safety responsibilities whatsoever. So, at the state level, we concluded, it wasn't just me, but there was regulatory official after regulatory official. They all concluded that the CDC and FDA are no longer trustable, that the states are going to have to take measures into their own hands to protect the population.
Yeah, and thank God we got people like Senator Ron Johnson that is actually asking you and your expertise to do these things. Now, last time that we were on, is you said it in the intro, but I really want people to understand this. You had to leave. We had a great interview, great thing you can watch up on our website that way, and you had to leave because you had to continue with patients. You still see patients, and you described at that time that there was, and I love how you say this, because when you say it, it's true, because you always put up a document showing it. You're like, the science evolves. We all know that a virus can change, and it can become different variants and stuff like that. And you've talked about, you saw that fact that that even in practice, you saw the natural immunity change. You saw that some of the variants affected other people. And then you also said you saw some severe things that way. Could you give us an update? I know I'm kind of, for the people that did watch it, they were excited you're gonna be on. They're like, could we get an update on him? To has he seen clinically? Has the variants become weaker? Has natural immunity become stronger? Is there have you seen, because with the protocols that you put together, which I encourage everybody to go, you can find them on the internet, they're great. But the idea is this: have you seen some less severity, some more severity? Have you you been busier? Have you seen people become more naturally immune to the variants that way? What in the scientific literature that you put out there, what have you seen?
Well, what I've seen in my clinical practice is, we went through these waves. We originally had the wild type wave that largely was just New York, New Jersey, and Detroit, and then we had the alpha wave, a so-called British variant, and that's largely what we had during Texas. I personally got sick during the alpha wave, and then we had a period of quiescence, and then the Delta wave last summer and fall. I thought the Delta wave was the worst because the virus was getting progressively more um, infectious. It was the transmissibility was going up. What's called the R naught value was going up. I mean, one person could actually infect 10 others. I mean, it was really, really incredible. And then we had this immediate switch to Omicron. Omicron, far and away, was the most mutated form of the pandemic virus. And Omicron had so many mutations in the spike protein and other proteins that it allowed for permutations of those mutations. And for the first time, we had subvariants. We had bona fide subvariants. So the big wave where more people got sick simultaneously than any other time was the Omicron wave in December and January. And it was about 5 to 10 times as tall of a peak of people infected compared to the Alpha and Delta waves. In there, What we learned is that our CDC told us on December 10th, 2021, it still holds true today, that 79% of those with Omicron had been fully compliant and taken the mandated products. So that made sense. Why did we have such a large number of patients? It was those who actually thought they were protected were in fact getting sick with Omicron. Those were BA1 and BA2 subvariants. Now we've completed that curve, and there's been a secondary kind of little shockwave out there of what's called BA4 and BA5
Hmm.
subvariants, and it is now a very mild syndrome. It's indistinguishable from the common cold. In Texas, I just checked. On the 4th of July, for instance, we had 0 deaths in Texas. The 7-day rolling average is 11. At our peak, we were at 300 to 400 deaths per day in our state. So this is now, so people who are getting it, it's like a cold. More severe symptoms or more frail people can get more ill. Most of the hospitalizations are not because of the illness, but it's just they are test positive, but they're there for other reasons. But we're able to manage it very well. The McCullough protocol,
Hmm.
which really features, because Omicron replicates at such a rapid rate, 70 times faster than Delta. It's all up in the nose. We must use virucidal nasal washes, very important. Dilute hydrogen peroxide, dilute povidone iodine, other over the counter products, Clear, Cofix RX, etc. Um, Immune mist. They all work the same way. They actually takes very little of any of the virucidal substances to kill the virus, but you simply spray it up the nose, sniff it back, and spit it out. It's got to go all the way around. Do it twice on each side, and then you can gargle with a dilute solution of povidone iodine or hydrogen peroxide, or just use Listerine. It's just as good. And gargle, but the gargle's got to be 30 seconds, and you have to gargle where it hurts back there and hold your neck back. That's for starters. Then the over-the-counter bundles working great: zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, quercetin, and we use famotidine.
Yep.
Famotidine, very important, but 80 milligrams a day. Recent report on my Twitter feed, P_McCullough MD from the University of Virginia, showed about a 45% reduction in the progression of illness and needing oxygenation if people just would take famotidine and aspirin as part of the outpatient McCullough protocol bundle. So most patients can just be managed with over-the-counter solutions now. In severe cases, we can advance to monoclonal antibodies. I had a patient yesterday. I attempted to use beptulizumab by Lilly, but I was called by the center saying they only had 2 doses left and they had to prioritize it to some senior citizens. So we know shortages are still present. We have oral antivirals. We've relied on hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, but now we have Paxlovid and we have molnupiravir. Now, the CDC has put out a health advisory on Paxlovid as of May 24th, based on papers, 3 papers that describe Paxlovid rebound, which is actually people getting sick after they finish the first round of it 2 to 8 days later, and they actually have a increased viral load and they get sicker on the second round. And that is happening in those who have taken 3 or 4 of the novel genetic products right now. It hasn't happened in people who have natural immunity. So we want to be careful there. I've seen those in my practice and have to use like a prolonged 30-day course of hydroxychloroquine. It's working fine. Corticosteroids play a huge role: colchicine, aspirin, anticoagulants. And then we stylize things. If patients have a lot of nasal congestion or other symptoms, using antibiotics, antihistamine, Montelukast can play a role, cyproheptadine. I recently had on the McCullough report Dr. Chetty from South Africa, and he really opened my eyes to the importance of antihistamines. He actually uses a promethazine, which is an older form. It's called Phenergan. It's used as an antiemetic, but also an antihistamine. There's many ways to skin a cat. It takes
Yep.
about 4 to 6 medicines. But I testified under oath for Ron Johnson in the COVID second opinion update for the U.S. Senate on January 24th, 2022. And there, I estimated 95% of all hospitalizations and deaths now with modern treatment that I've described are completely avoidable. Now, looking backwards, based on the advancement of knowledge and actually I centered it on my testimony. When did I tell America this could be done? Because I was publishing the papers. My estimates looking backwards are that 2/3 the deaths and hospitalizations were avoidable. As a general number, we're at about 1 million deaths and then the number of hospitalization is 10x. So we had 10 million Americans were hospitalized. Two-thirds of both those numbers were completely avoidable.
One thing that's scary to bring up, because you're right. If you guys, if you haven't seen his testimony and also the McCullough Project, go to his website. It's all there. It's also on our website. You said so many predictions that came true. I want to bring up something that you have talked about. You showed literature about it, and you talked about that you were very concerned with the current direction that the world was going. It's that form of treatment that we all know that a lot of people have done. And you talked about how you predicted that there was going to be massive amount of cancers, autoimmune diseases. And you specifically talked about at one time in your interview that you're very concerned that there's going to be lung issues post form of treatment in the form of a shot. And recently you showed some of that. Clinically, have you seen anybody come in with those kind of issues having post treatment that way? Because you said it out there. You talked about what happened in January. You predicted percentage that way. You made some very bold statements, and now they're all coming true. What made you see that, and what's your concern going forward? Because I think a lot of Americans that trusted their doctor and went through the standard protocol that most people are now looking back and questioning. What made you think that way, and what are you kind of predicting for our future?
Well, one of the first observations is that these novel forms of genetic technology, gene transfer technology, they needed at least 5 years of observation to be determined if they're safe. So I think everyone would agree after 2 months of development, rush, everybody has to take one every 6 months. We have no idea if these are safe. We can't. It's just impossible because all the safety periods were skipped. And now we've learned in a paper from Harvard, Elena Ogata, that the spike protein, which is generated from the genetic code, circulates in the bloodstream for up to a month, on average 15 days. There is a paper by Roken and colleagues from Stanford published in Cell finding the genetic material with the synthetic nucleotide analog caps in lymph nodes for up to 60 days after someone takes it. It could be longer. That's as far as they've looked. And it's just hit my Twitter feed, and I've published on this, that Fertig and colleagues have now, using advanced techniques, have found the circulatory ribonucleic acid from the products, Pfizer or Moderna, found it circulating in blood for 15 days. So I can tell you this is far too long of an exposure to have genetic information, genetic material circulating around. So in a paper by Stephanie Senoff as the lead author, I'm a co-author on the author blog, we have great concerns that the genetic material then itself may be oncogenic since the skip testing. And then there is a paper from University of Pittsburgh showing that the S2 segment, which is produced from these products, that's in the body, the S2 segment and the S1 segment is in the body for over a year, that those are clearly oncogenic. And they are through a mechanism. The mechanism is they actually inhibit the tumor suppressor features of the P53 gene and the BRCA or the BRCA gene. P53 governs kidney cancer, other solid organ cancers, and BRCA, women will know that because it governs breast cancer and female reproductive cancer. So people who already have loss of function mutations in those various cancer genes, taking one of these could have cancers take off on them. And so in my circles, either colleagues who I know or patients in my practice, I've seen an acceleration in kidney cancer, very, very concerning. And now the DMED, or Department of Defense Epidemiologic Database, is showing a multiple-fold increased rise in cancers. And so the big tickets that we're aware of here and afraid of is that the products cause heart damage, myocarditis. And this was initially levered at Moderna and Pfizer, but it's been shown with AstraZeneca and with Johnson & Johnson now. It follows. And actually, even with Novavax, an antigen-based vaccine, myocarditis was described in their briefing booklet for the FDA. We know that all the products cause blood clotting because the spike protein causes blood clotting. That's been shown over and over again. So big blood clots in the veins, the arteries. It can cause blood clotting and hemorrhage in the brain. In a paper by Burhild and colleagues from 3 Scandinavian countries, 3 Nordic countries, They have reported that there's 7,750 of these neurologic catastrophes that's happened after taking one of the either Pfizer, Moderna, or the AstraZeneca vaccine within 28 days of taking it. These are astronomical numbers. The third category is immunologic reactions. It's called MISC, or multi-system inflammatory disorder. It's happening after taking these products. It's rare. It does happen largely in children, but if about 15% end up on the ventilator, it's a disaster. Obviously, you wouldn't want a single child to get one of these. And it tends to occur in children who have already had the respiratory infection, so they don't need to take one of these. And they end up with this multi-system inflammatory disorder, so pulmonary failure, hepatic, cardiac, and renal injury all together. And then finally, hematologic diseases. The word to be aware of is called VITT, and it stands for our sacred cow induced thrombocytopenic purpura. And this is people who take one of these and they get a skin rash, bruising, start bleeding from the gums and nose. It's an all out disaster where there's clotting and bleeding at the same time. So, this panoply of injuries, disabilities, and deaths, we've never seen a wave of destruction like this. And it is showing up everywhere. I mentioned the World Council for Health says pull these off the market. But now we have life insurance companies, one after another, have reported record claims among working age people. Lincoln National recently 63% excess. The job market, there's not enough people to replace the workers that are going down either with death or disability afterwards. So it's a unqualified disaster worldwide.
Yeah, I personally just typed in my computer here, VITT, and the first thing that came up was American College of Cardiology, and it says vaccine induced thrombocytic thrombopenia, what cardiovascular clinicians need to know, and describes just what you talked about. So I encourage everybody to research that. And what you've been through and all your predictions and things come out, it took a lot of courage. Let's do this. I got two more things that I definitely want everybody to know about. No joke, just the stuff that you've had to deal with as far as politically and the things that they're now coming after you now on. But your book, tell us about your book. We're excited about it. We'd love to hear about it. When we had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on here, he just came out with the Fauci one, and our audience went nuts over it. So please share your book list. Tell us about it. Let's and then I got one major thing I want to talk to you about after that. So let's hear about it.
Well, here's the book. It's called Courage to Face COVID-19. I'm trying to figure out how to do the camera.
There you go.
Courage to Face It, Preventing Hospitalization and Death While Battling the Biopharmaceutical Complex. And it is a narrative nonfiction, so it's actually a story. It's about the story of the discoveries and the developments that I was involved with in basically learning how to treat the illness, and saving lives is very important. A lot of people participated in that, including the late Dr. Vladimir Zelenko. I wanted to give him great credit for his contributions. Myself, Didier Riald, Yvette Lozano, so many people contributed, Harvey Risch. And so it is a narrative. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. I wrote it, took a year. I wrote it with basically best-selling author, true crime expert, John Lee. John's from Dallas, but he had lived in Vienna for a long time as a criminal investigator and forensic reporter. And John has concluded that there have been two crimes that have been committed. One is fraud, that things have been misrepresented to the public. So an example of fraud is when the FDA wanted to block the Pfizer dossier and on the deaths that Pfizer was recording after people took their product. And then the other major crime is mass negligent homicide, that far too many people have died. This wasn't shut down when it was supposed to. And that's what's been concluded. Now, it's a fun story. It's not a medical book. There's no medical data in there. It takes about 2.5 hours to read. And people have called it a gateway book. So if you have friends or family that are still confused or what's in mass formation, I talked to a family member today on my wife's side, and she's over in England. And I can tell you, she's in mass formation. I talked to her. She goes, "Oh, me and my husband, we took them all. We took them all. Yeah, well, we took them." And I said, "Well, people are protesting because there's large numbers of people dying." And then she goes, well, we took them and we didn't have a problem. This idea of, hey, I took one, I'm okay. Well, it doesn't mean that's okay for everyone if large numbers of people are dying, but people who are in mass formation, they tend to think that way. In fact, they have a son, two sons, who are doctors, and they refuse to see patients unless they take them. So I can tell you, they're in the mass formation. This book is for them. We're going to get some books out to them because they have to read it and get warmed up to the idea that something isn't right, something's going wrong. It's actually the first book is going to be about the suppression of treatment, which I think was intentional in order to further the mass mandated campaign. And suppression of treatment was on everything, including the nasal washes. I just reviewed a warning that the FDA gave a company called Cofix RX. Cofix RX
Mhm.
makes a 1.5% povidone iodine solution. They actually, and of course, there's 12 supportive clinical studies. There's a meta-analysis, 3 randomized trials. Povidone iodine clearly works and kills the pandemic virus. But here they are receiving a very strict FDA warning, sanction, what have you, and yet the Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson have no warnings. No concerns whatsoever, and large numbers of people died. No one ever died from a povidone iodine nasal spray, and you can see it's obvious that the FDA is working to suppress all forms of hope and treatment and force people into taking one of these every 6 months.
Now, speaking of suppression, I was very upset personally knowing what you put out there over the last 2 years when all of a sudden the American Board of Internal Medicine decides to, censor you, control you, investigate you that way. And it was very saddened when I was watching the highway the other day. And I wanted our audience to know that with all the great work you do, and things are so documented, and you've actually been a contributor to the board itself that way. Give us an update. What's going on? What do you see happening? And here's one thing that I don't understand is the fact that it's like everything you've done, you've asked what most doctors should do: massive investigation, massive amount of scientific literature, clinical results, which are arguable that way. Yet, and they even talk about the iodine itself being investigated, and the people who are actually doing, like you said, criminal acts and actually found it that way, nothing. And then you're doing great clinical work, saving thousands of patients, and now the board is investigating things. Can you give us an update on that? Because I want, and also too, I want to know how our audience can support you. Is it get your word out? Is it get your videos out? What's the best way? Obviously, I want people to go to your website. I would like you to tell them where to go that way. But I want to show people that you're doing everything right. And the great thing is your heart has always been the right place to do everything that way. Yet a board now investigates you from doing what you're taught to do, and you've been doing for over 30 years.
Well, the American Board of Internal Medicine Development really was the culmination of a series of censorship and reprisal events that started actually in late 2020 and then in January of 2021. Because I devised and developed and tested treatments for the illness, got large grants, testified in the US Senate. I was actually walked into an office in January of 2021. This is before any safety data on the vaccines. And I was basically told I was out of a job. And I was very highly ranked at a major medical center. And it was basically because I treated COVID patients, it had nothing to do with the mass mandated products. Then, about 6 months later, when the health system mandates came out, a lawsuit was waged against me that I was bringing the institution's name into the media. That was their false claim. And a temporary restraining order was put, restraining me to my separation agreement, which I was abiding by anyway. So the TRO had no impact whatsoever. The lawsuit went nowhere. It's still in mediation, grinding out. Nothing's ever happened. By certified letter, I've been stripped of 2 professorships of medicine, and I've been stripped of 2 editorships. No due process, no phone calls, no courtesy phone calls, no faculty senate hearings, nothing. I've lost all my NIH and big pharma committee positions. I've been stripped of writing group positions. All of this, again, with no discussion, no courtesy phone call, no rationale, no opportunity to actually, have scientific interchange. So something very horrible is going on. I want everyone to understand that. Very, very horrible. I'm the most published person in my field in the world in history. I'm recognized. I've testified before the FDA Congressional Oversight Panel, New York Academy of Sciences, European Medicine Agency. 2018, I was the named endowed lecturer at Harvard in two departments. And in the pandemic virus, I'm one of the most published people. Done my best to get my work published in peer-reviewed journals, and I've provided expert commentary and analysis under oath. But on May 26th, the American Board of Internal Medicine actually chose several of my statements made under oath, which is to my best of my ability, and they are claiming that my statements may have dissuaded somebody from taking one of these products, and that's really the basis of it. And so they are calling a credentials committee meeting of which I may be decertified by the board. And so, I can tell by looking at the list of board members, I'm the most published amongst them. I'm clearly the most expert amongst them. So, Senator Ron Johnson stepped in. He wrote them and said, listen, why don't you come out of your offices, meet with Dr. McCullough and others. Let's have a fair interchange of information, see what is out there, and why anyone would be concerned with fair balanced presentation of data. There's risks and benefits to everything. People need to understand them, or should want to understand them. The American board did not respond to Johnson. It's amazing. They don't respond to a letter from a standing senator. And so they doubled down 2 days later and said they're joining forces with the American Medical Association to intensify the reprisal of physicians. And they're going after some heavy hitters. Paul Merrick, who's one of the most published people in the history of critical care and pulmonary medicine. I mean, things are not going to end up well for them. I can tell you right now, there's a reason why they don't want scientific interchange. So now there's a tremendous review of what are their conflicts of interest, who is emailing them, what are the financial ties behind this, who's stimulating them to do this. Meanwhile, in California, they're moving along legislation where doctors would not be able to do what you and I are doing right now. We actually wouldn't be able to have scientific discourse. That this censorship, which is right out of the textbook of propaganda from Nazi Germany, it's right out of the textbook, is controlling information in order to force something on the population. In this case, you know what it is. It's something every 6 months that people don't want, and doesn't work, and it's not safe. That's what they're trying to do.
I think I'm going to take that last 5 minutes and put it on every social media platform, even if it gets me kicked off again, because that statement right there from one of the greatest scientists of my generation, and currently, as you guys know, the most published in his field, Dr. Peter McCullough. I personally don't even know how to thank you. You're saying for the stuff that you're doing and the consequences of just doing what's right. It's kind of saddening hearing that last story that way. But I think there's hope. I think there's hope that with great senators, and I think there's a shift because you haven't given up. And I think that we're going to see good things come. Might not be for now. They just pulled Jordan Peterson off of Twitter talking about some certain things. And he goes, well, it's legal right now. But guess what happens? The doctors in Germany that produce all those experiments on people, they held them accountable later. And I'm hoping that with people like you and other great docs, Dr. Corey, everybody, that when it comes down to our day in court, our day in front of everybody, and I think that we will prevail, especially if you're standing there. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. We really do appreciate it.
Well, let me tell you how you can follow me.
Yes.
I've got a link tree, petermcculloughmd.com. That will provide links to social media. I do have an active Twitter account and Instagram. I'm most active on those. Go to America Out Loud Talk Radio and McCullough Report. I issue a report to the nation once a week and have interview people from all over the world. It's a terrific program. It plays twice on Saturday, Sunday. It hits the Apple, iPod, iPod network on Tuesday, and has huge international audience. Of course, the book Courage to Face It. There's a website, Courage to Face CourageToFaceIt.com. Is you'll find that link on my link tree, and then it takes you to Amazon to purchase the book. It's best-selling, by the way, in viral diseases, communicable diseases, and true crime. It's been a bestseller now for a couple months. And then very importantly, you can follow me and see me, as I make my contributions on the major networks. I'm a frequent contributor on Fox and Laura Ingraham Angle. I was just on Bannon War Room. But I've been on with ABC and others. I think you're right. I think people will come out of this. I think if there's an action item, I think everybody ought to schedule an appointment with their doctor, and they ought to bring up the issue with their doctor. And when the doctor says, yes, you should take it, I think people should say, I've analyzed this and I don't think it's safe enough. And I see people getting sick anyway who've taken this. Obviously, it doesn't work. And doctors need to start getting that steady stream of feedback. Recent New York Times article said 35% of America is either not going to take it or they're not going to take, number three or number four.
Booster
I mean,
dose.
they're out. That's a third of the country is done with this, and they've dug in. And I can tell you, it's not going to happen. So I think people who have this vision that everybody in the country is going to take one of these every 6 months, they need to drop it, and we need to move on. I wish they would have worked. I really do. We could have had a program for nursing home patients, for instance, or nursing home workers. We could have had a limited program if they worked, but they weren't safe enough and they didn't work in the end. And they were given to far too many people. And now we're picking up the pieces on those injured, disabled, and sadly, those people have died. We can't get them back.
Yep, which is really sad. Well, thank you, Dr. Peter. We appreciate you. We're going to have you on. Like I said, probably just like before, we'll wait another 4 or 5 months to have you on to get an update. And I'm going to watch your predictions again. Like I said, once again, go to his website, guys. I'm there every single week. I listen to his stuff on a regular basis. And one thing nice that he not only is he one of the most published in his field ever, but he also always gives his links to every publication. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to read those on a regular basis. So it's for me to be able to share with our patients that we have offices all over the world. Dr. Peter, you are shared with the people from all our clinics, and we hope that they continue to watch you and actually get the information because you have put out great scientific data, and we do really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you back in a couple months.
All right. See you then.
See you there. All right, thank you, Doc, so much for that wonderful interview. Just some of the things that he said are so impactful in so many ways when it comes down to just what's happened over the last couple of years. And it's interesting. I want you to think about even that last 5 minutes when he was talking about seeing some of the things that happened. There's just some underlying things that were just bad. This wasn't about everything they thought it was about, and it's really frustrating. So now, as this continues to shed light on it, like I said, just watching the interview as I was sitting here just gets kind of frustrating hearing the things that these people go through when they're just trying to do great work. And Dr. Peter McCullough has done great work through the years, and I hope he continues to publish all of his research that he finds, and we'll continue to do and support him in any way we can. And like I said, we'll have him back as always because we're hoping that as he continues to fight against some of the board, but also continue to help people that have been suffered from SARS-CoV-2, that you'll see the results that we continue to see and get some more advice from him. And thank you so much for being on, Doc. And it's nice to stay in contact with you on a regular basis, and we will see you in a couple months. Now, that being said, as the requests continue to come in, I really want to thank our team that put together all these different segments on there. And one of the things that we requested was the big request when it came to some of the things that we give to people. So we're going to move into our next product knowledge segment. All right, product knowledge. It's kind of nice because people always talk about the things that we give on a regular basis and talk about. And one thing that I want to talk about that is important for, I've been covering massively over the last couple of months, is actually the male glandular and also the female glandular. Kind of want to show you just the ingredients in there. If you look in there, they're once again picked at the highest quality and sourcing. You can see that there's a testy in there, there's prostate, the heart, liver. Yes, there are certain organ meats in there that come directly from a great grass-fed cow. Once again, I work with the manufacturer out of New Zealand for us to be able to have it. You can see there's a QR code down below. The products that we use, once again, not only are the greatest source and greatest quality, but what does happen is they're picked for a specific reason. A lot of people know that I am big into organ meats. I would rather actually see a person eat an organ meat than a muscle meat. Because you know why? Because the regeneration aspect. When you look at the email that I did at first when we had the young lady that suffers from the lungs, well, guess what? If we don't get some regeneration to those lungs, there's no supplement that you're going to take that's going to actually just make her lungs work better. Yes, that's why they took some things and And guess what happened? They saw some progress, but it didn't help long term. We need regeneration. That's why I'm so big into glandulars that way, because what it does is a lot of people do not eat organ meats. So if we can put them at least into a pill form, it allows us to actually give them so people can see this. Now, once again, I take this daily. And you say, Doc, but you eat, a lot of organ meats. Yes, but once again, I'm not eating, Rocky Mountain oysters. And even though once again they're so back ordered, I wanted to actually get a show where we could do some Rocky Mountain oysters with all of the guys here. So Travis, since you're new to the show, we're gonna make you eat a Rocky Mountain oyster the first time they come in. So Kyle's just waiting and stuff. So yeah, but they're fantastic. Now a lot of people are not going to eat them, so we want to put them into a capsule form. That's why if you even look at there's a female glandular. If you notice once again, you can see here there is liver and ovary in there. Yes, as we eat these things, it gives our body the constituents to really move into the facts that we need to regenerate. So that's why I love this. I will continue to do them. My family does them. My friends do them. And once again, and I'm saying they try to eat them first. And when people don't want to eat certain glands, they supplement with them. So the product knowledge of these things is actually just a really high quality, grass finished. New Zealand has, if you ever look at their regulations they have for farming, it's crazy. That's why we work with a company there that we can produce the best ones so we can get them people so then we actually see this. This is applied. If you go to the clinic for a Wellness Way all over the country, you're gonna find out these are used by all of our practitioners on a regular basis for that. So you can see there's multiple forms from a male glandular, digestive, to just liver itself, the thyroid, the immune, blood sugar, adrenal, female. Yes, once again, they are so essential for life itself. Now, speaking of life itself, I want to move into our hot topics section because it's going to be something that I believe is needed and something that people need to know on a regular basis. So let's move to our hot topics. Now, there's one thing about my hot topic this week is because we are getting closer and closer. As you saw when it came to Dr. Peter McCullough, he's going to teaming up with Ron Johnson to talk about some political things. Now, Ron Johnson is from my state here of Wisconsin. Very big fan of his because, once again, what he stands for. But coming up very quickly, we have a lot of things that we have to deal with when it comes to our freedoms, and especially, and I even hate the word to say medical freedoms. I can't say medical freedoms because freedom's freedoms. You know what I'm saying? You have the freedom to walk down the street. You have the freedom to choose your doctor and different aspects of that. But so what I did is I'm very heavily politically active. Now, people say, Doc, why do you get so heavily involved in politics? And this was way before even the pandemic. Because what happened in the pandemic? Do you really think there isn't people, as you can see what Dr. Peter McCullough talked about, that have some underlying things? They just want everybody to have a shot, regardless. And it's quite interesting because I sit there and giggle going that with everything going on with this pandemic, if you couldn't see, if you are just a human being that has any kind of compassion for other people or looks at what happened, there's no way that you can see that this was done right or even done in a very good way. It's actually done totally opposite, and they're still trying to push people like crazy. So I am very politically active on a regular basis for the purposes of one thing. Let me say this, and let me make this very clear before you watch this next interview. If the president I supported got elected, if the governor I elected got elected that from where I supported, if a local constituent, if a town board, if things this way, I can honestly tell you, the benefit to the Wellness Way is absolutely zero. Let me say it again. There's nothing that a president, a governor, or anything can do that actually, helps the Wellness Way. And what I mean by that is this. You'll see companies support people because they can get a government contract, they can get money from the government, and this happens a lot with buildings. It's not a joke. All of a sudden, a construction company or a road company or other things that need government contracts, they'll support a candidate massively for the benefit of it that way. The Wellness Way doesn't have that. Wellness Way doesn't get, there's nothing besides the right to choose who you want to see as a doctor or actually have the ability to keep government out of your life. Because when it comes to healthcare, you think I'm joking? Talk to a mom that CPS showed up at her door. You think I'm joking? There's patients of ours to where the mom said, listen, we're not giving our child a Hep B vaccine. Just even that one. which only is evident in prostitutes or IV drug users. That's where people that get Hep B are. And CPS was at their door before they got home. Now, once again, I would tell you what I'd do if CPS ever showed up at my door. But the idea is this, is that's where government should have no right to actually do anything when it comes to your choices or your health care that way. So I will support a candidate that will move government out of that. Because there's nothing from a financial standpoint that any candidate, any president, because you know why? People come to the wellness way because they're sick. There's no force, there's no stuff, they're not made to choose here. There's no insurance that even deals with us. So therefore, guess what happens? I can't have the governor, or a president pay more insurance stuff to get more people here, because it doesn't happen. The services that we offer aren't covered. Do you say? See, the reason why I bring this up is because the next interview is very important, not only for our state of Wisconsin, but just liberty and freedom in general. So I want you to welcome and actually see the candidate that I'm supporting for Wisconsin, because I know her in great detail. And the thing is this, is people don't realize, if I ever support somebody, guys, this is not a joke. I have vetted it, and I have drilled them. And you think I'm joking, I drill them intensely to the point where I'll get downright in their face and stuff. Respectfully, but I will drill them to the point where I watch everything they do, because if anybody goes against civil liberties or civil freedoms or civil rights, I won't support them. And so watch our next interview. It's fantastic, and welcome Rebecca Clayfish. Hey everybody, I'm so excited to have, in my words, one of the greatest politicians I've investigated. You guys know I'm very detailed when it comes to that stuff. I have drilled this woman. She has answered every question for months and months and months for me that way. And it's somebody that not only massively endorsed, but I believe in everything that she now does for Wisconsin. And the other day I was on the phone with her. We were discussing some policy stuff, and I was just trying to be clear on some of the policies, and it was great. And I said, it'll be nice when we do this when you run for president. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. And do you remember what I said?
Yeah, she's like, no way.
Thank you.
And I said, let's make Wisconsin great. So Rebecca, it's always awesome having you back.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Doc.
Yes, so we got lots to talk about today, but
Yes.
I want for people that are just new to the channel that way, and everybody knows that I've talked about you many. Every talk I've done for the last 6 months, you've always come up. I was on a radio station today that talking about stuff that way because I believe in your policies. And that's one thing that's all I care about as a father, as a person, as a business owner, and a family man. That listen, it affects everything that you've talked about. Affects it from my business standpoint to actually my little girl's future that way. So
Right.
I want the audience just a little bit know about that, and then little policy stuff, and then we'll get into some detailed questions.
That sounds good. Thank you, Doctor.
Yep.
I really appreciate the time here today, and I really appreciate the time with you guys. And I know you have viewers from around the world, really, but here in Wisconsin, we always say you guys, and it refers to pretty much everybody in the room. And I'm running for governor of Wisconsin because I care about Wisconsin. I live in Wisconsin, and I want to fight for your family the same way I fight for my own. And you hear the doctor talk about it all the time. Quality of life and how you can fight for your family. And I've actually done it. I'm the only conservative, proven fighter in this race for governor. And I'm also Governor Tony Evers' worst nightmare. There's a reason why this man has run 3 attack ads against me in my primary election. And it's because they don't want me to run against Tony Evers. He's the former head of the Department of Public Instruction, and he has failed our children. And it's time for we moms and dads, people across Wisconsin, to stand up to a bully who sides with teachers union bosses, anarchists, and I'm going to say it, downright communists on the far left fringes of the Democrat political party, and puts our children's futures, in jeopardy. Over COVID, we saw how government grew into a steamroller to just trample our individual rights and liberties. I'm running for governor to take back control and give it back to the people of Wisconsin. We need to get back to work, back to school, back the badge, and give government back to the people. And if that sounds like what you want, I'm the only one who can win this general election. But I've got a primary first. So on August 9th, you need to vote before November 8th, because we need the person who actually can win in November to get across the finish line so we can go back to a state that has a conservative renaissance once again. Let's usher in a new golden age of conservative reform.
And one thing that, and I was talking about the other day with you, but before we go, where can we follow you on? If we see our things, you got your website?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes,
forgovernor.com?
you can see it is all right down there, guys. It's just RebeccaForGovernor.com, and you can also follow me on all of my social pages. So you're going to see at RebeccaForGovernor.com all of the things above the hamburger menu, but down there you can also see, I think, my Instagram handle and my Facebook handle. We're also on Twitter and a number of other things. You know, visit our YouTube page. You can check out my views on policies, some of the ads. Like them, share them, because people need to know. August 9th is not an awesome day to have a primary election. I mean, it's summer in Wisconsin, and we all know people are traveling. And so if you have an absentee ballot, or if you know anyone who has an absentee ballot or is going to be on vacation, make sure they get an absentee ballot. They are being filled out and sent in right now. And so we need people to know that they have a choice in this election. Experienced leadership. I'm a 4-time statewide winner, and someone who has assured that this state was a free state. I mean, we were the ones who put in place concealed carry and castle doctrine, photo ID to protect your vote. We expanded school choice across Wisconsin. We made more robust our programs in Milwaukee and in Kenosha and in Racine. We defunded Planned Parenthood of all state dollars. We ended tele-abortions. We closed 5 Planned Parenthood clinics. But we didn't just stop there. We condensed and we dropped tax rates. We passed prevailing wage reform and right to work. And of course, the granddaddy of them all, Act 10. Which has now saved the taxpayers of Wisconsin $15 billion. And you remember this, Doctor. I became the only lieutenant governor in American history to face and then beat a recall election.
And the one thing that's why when I was talking to you the other day, if you just listen to her words, the reason why I even brought up President, I wasn't actually joking, is because you guys might be a worldwide audience, and we're talking about our Wisconsin election coming up, but the policies that she put in place, we want to put in place in Wisconsin, are actually applicable to everybody from United States to Europe to Russia.
I agree.
So that's why I said, you know, it'd be not only good to have her, we're going to do everything we possibly can to get her on our Wisconsin stage, but her policies actually are just good for people across the world. And so I want, because you're speaking multiple times a day everywhere that way, what are you noticing from the Wisconsin people, what they're really looking for?
Affordability right now. I mean, Bidenflation is an absolute tragedy. People on fixed incomes can't afford gas and groceries in the same day. And that's not even remotely okay. I'm a middle-class mom. I live in the country, and I have a 2002 minivan. So not exactly a sweet ride, and I openly acknowledge that. But, you know, I drive my kid because we open and enroll our daughter into a public school 2 districts away. So I drive my kid 23 minutes there and then have to drive 23 minutes back. And then in the afternoon, it's the exact same thing. Families like mine can't afford to do gas prices the way they are right now. And so we first of all need to do long-term reform for energy affordability in this country, and that's going to take replacing our president. But right now, Tony Evers has been making horrible choices, and sadly, his position on the gas tax is actually the exact same position that my opponent in the Republican primary is taking. So he wants gas tax indexing, which would basically mean that it tracks along with inflation. It would be 36% more than what you're paying right now. Nobody can afford that. The other piece is, you know, I live in Wisconsin, 365 days a year. That's kind of important if you are going to be the governor of a state. My opponent, Tim Michels, in this primary, actually went on the radio, said it his own words in his out loud voice. He lives in Wisconsin 183 days a year.
He's out east.
And so all of this stuff that you and I talk about with the disaster that was COVID and the forced masking of our kids, and now they're trying to push COVID-19 vaccines down even on 6-month-old babies, and they're contact quarantining my kids constantly. And Tony Evers literally locked my kids out of their classrooms altogether. Tim Michels wasn't here to fight any of those battles. In fact, his kids didn't even go to Wisconsin school. So he's been in Connecticut this
Yes,
whole time.
out
We
east.
have been suffering. I have been fighting, recruiting candidates to run for school board and county board and town council and judges all across Wisconsin. And not just recruiting candidates, but also helping to fund their campaigns, like fundraising for them, knocking on doors for them, doing the hard grassroots work to truly take back control of this state from the local level all the way up through the governor's office. And that's why I need your help. And if you can go to RebeccaForGovernor.com, it would be tremendously helpful for me.
I got to tell you a story. I didn't tell you this. I'll
Okay.
save the camera because you know I gotta throw you off a little bit in a great way.
All right, go.
So
go.
you did something about a couple months ago.
Okay.
And you sent a nurse because your concern is civil liberties and civil rights for people. And people say, well, what is Rebecca doing with all this stuff? Even though she's not governor, I said, she's actually fighting and getting people in the right places to actually do their duty. You sent me a nurse that was getting leveraged by her hospital. And because when the pandemic hit this way, I said to my wife, I said, listen, we can get a lot of criticism, we get a lot of stuff that way, and but we hired civil liberties attorneys, and you knew that I was fighting for liberties and freedom. You said, listen, I'm gonna get you the right persons to talk to, and you guided a person to where we got her exemption, where she still kept her job and still things like that. And that's why people say, what's she doing fighting? You know the right people in place to handle things, and I believe that when you're in power, you're going to put the right people in administration that actually you already guided people to help them get where they want to go. So that's why I was surprised I didn't want to tell you the story
I love
live.
that though,
Yes.
because experience does matter. Relationships do matter, and this is what happens when you actually have relationships across the state. You know, I've spent the last 12 years going to practically every Rotary Kiwanis school district across Wisconsin, building relationships. So I honestly believe that everything in my life has led to this moment. This is why I am passionate about state policy and why I love connecting people who are fellow freedom fighters and putting them in positions of opportunity to fight the good fight. You know, you and I did not even connect until this year.
Yeah.
But we have been in parallel lines fighting the fight for freedom.
Yep.
And I don't think that there has been a more critical time in our
Right
history.
now.
And I know, guys, that I have told you over time, this is the most important election of your lifetime. This is the most important election of your lifetime. It really is, because look at what has happened to us over the last 3.5
been
years.
crazy.
That Tim Michaels has missed because he has been living out of state. We've been sitting here fighting this good fight. In 2020, when, you know, other people were off in their East Coast homes, you know, I was recruiting candidates to run in the darkest blue districts of Wisconsin to take the fight to Democrats so they wouldn't just run unopposed. Because every now and again, magic happens and people get so angry that they're like, fine, you know what? We have tried this and tried this and tried this. This is the definition of insanity. I'm voting for the other guy. I'm voting for the change agent. My job was to put change agents on the ballot. And then I doubled down by starting this political action committee so that I could help fund these change agents. Do you know that there is a Republican city attorney in Seattle today? Because people just got that angry that they're like, fine, we're done with the Democrat. We're going to vote for the change agent.
Yes.
Do you know that the district attorney in San Francisco got recalled? This is what happens when the grassroots rises up and takes back control. This is why this movement is so important and why I need your help at RebeccaForGovernor.com.
But I want to bring something up, because when I really got to know you, I really started, you know, and I investigate every political person there is out there, and I started firing questions at you. You answered them too well that way, to the point where I believed in what you're doing so much. You talked about your political action committee. I'm like, we got to donate to it. And the one thing that I want people to understand, we're going to talk about this today too, is your political action committee was more about your local government than even the governor itself. Because you understand how good local governments are.
Yeah, that was
fantastic.
designed for the little guy. And let me tell you what you did. When you contributed there, this Rebecca PAC, this last April, so these are the races for school board, town council, county board, judgeships. Those are your spring races. Your statewide, that's what you're going to vote for this August 9th. That's when I need your vote for this primary. And then in November is when you're going to cast your vote in the general election. But in April, We played in 116 races, Doctor.
Yep.
We won 85
Yes.
of them. 85.
Yes.
Some of these races I was so passionate about. I was like out there knocking doors for school board candidates.
Yep.
You know, handing out literature. And there's nothing so rewarding as going to a victory party for school board candidates where you know that you made a difference.
Yes.
And you're going to now make a difference for kiddos like mine. And what we have seen over the last 3.5 years from Tony Evers is a lack of leadership, just failed leadership, because he's so weak. And all he does is pander to these union bosses, not teachers. So to be very clear, I know lots of amazing teachers, and they have been as devastated by what has happened over the last 3 years, the learning loss, and then now this epidemic of anxiety and depression. You know that we have seen among 12 to 17-year-old girls a 51% increase in visits to the ER for suicide.
Yep, suicide. It's been the pandemic just raised it so much, and because it's set up for these kids that way. And speaking of past teachers, one sitting right here and stuff of that, and now she's one of our investigative journalists that way. But it's true, it's changed the whole aspect of the classrooms and everything that way.
It is, and you see good teachers leaving the classroom, and you see people leaving law enforcement because they don't feel like they have any leadership at the top. I mean, it starts with the tone at the top, and when you have a governor who sides with union bosses over the teachers who deeply care about kids, and when you see a governor who sides with anarchists and rioters over good cops who are trying to protect the people of Kenosha, where $50 million went up in smoke and 2 men died, and in Madison, where you saw cop cars lit on fire and the city-county building firebombed and a state senator left bloody and beaten on the Capitol lawn, you have a guy who is completely out of touch in Tony Evers, and that is why he just needs to retire. He needs to go.
Let him go.
I mean,
Let's make him retire.
You may trust him to walk your dog. Don't trust him for 4 more years as your governor. That's just too much responsibility. We tried it their way. It did not work.
I can't do it. I care about dogs.
I like that. A doctor who's also pro-dog.
That's right.
Cares about your family, cares about your health.
Can't give him my
cares
dog
about your
either.
pet.
That's right. I can't give him that. That'd just be too much that way. So. Yeah, and let's go back to this because there was great things. We celebrated massively with some local elections because we're really proud of this. Everybody that we supported for local elections, and they won. It was great.
Congratulations.
And, but let's go back to this because I want people to really understand this about you because I am very critical and I'm very particular about civil liberties and civil rights and stuff like that. And nice thing is, and I studied you when you were lieutenant governor. I looked at everything that you did that way. I want people to know some of the big wins that you did already in government.
Sure.
Because that's one thing I think you don't realize. What people are like, well, what Rebecca do? I'm like, well, look at what she did as lieutenant governor first, because that will help you see that not only is she, like I called you the other day, I said she's a winner. Do you know what I'm saying? And so therefore, you get behind a winner because then what happens is then they'll continue to make good policy that way. So can you share some of your past successes, which will lead into that actually governorship that you had to come against, and tell them some of the major obstacles. That's what people realize in politics. You can even have somebody on the same side of the aisle being a Republican and still actually fight against you for even good policies, and you push through and share some of that, because I know that behind the scenes because I dig deep when it comes to politics, but a lot of people don't. Can you share some of those stories?
Well, I'll actually use right to work as my example because my opponent in this primary opposed right to work when I was lieutenant governor. And I did a lot of work in economic development. You remember that you all voted for me, or I hope you voted for me. If you didn't, I asked for your vote this time around. But in 2010, we came into office after a really deep recession, 07 to 09, and our economy was in a shambles, and we had the task of putting Wisconsin back together again. We were handed this budget by Governor Jim Doyle that we did not realize at the time had a $3.6 billion hole in it that was now our responsibility to fix, because you have to pass a balanced budget by law in the state of Wisconsin. Well, we were able to do that. We were able to get Act 10 passed, and obviously that caused all the protesters to come in the middle of my chemotherapy. But it started to attract businesses. They said, wow, these guys are really serious about creating an environment for economic development. We may consider moving there. So I started to pick up the phone. There were people starting to complain in the Chicagoland area about all the taxes in the Chicagoland area, Illinois in general, Minnesota, and I would read the newspaper and I would just Google the CEOs who were listed as complaining, their sound bites, their quotes in the newspaper, and I would just cold call them and say, hey, you know, I noticed that you were really upset about this and I thought I could offer you a better deal. Would you like to check out Wisconsin? You know, we'd be happy to come down, have a meeting. We can tell you about some of the certainty and stability that we're creating, the predictability with some of our new policies. And a lot of them actually took us up on that. But then we started, after, you know, we were really on a tear, we started to face some barriers. There were folks who were saying, well, Wisconsin is not a right-to-work state. What that basically means is there were companies that could force their private sector employees to be a part of the union. And even if you didn't agree with the union's spending on politics, because unions contribute to Democrats almost exclusively. And so there are a lot of people who will say, well, you know, I actually believe that I can succeed on my own merit. I don't need to be protected by the union. And also, I don't want to be forced to pay these dues to an organization that just contributes to Democrats. I don't believe in that type of policy. And so what we wanted to do was free up Wisconsin's workers, become a right-to-work state, so you had the right to work anywhere and not have to pay these union dues. And people on the other side of the political aisle just lost their minds. We had tons of protests, as you might imagine, but funny enough, Tim Michaels, my Republican opponent on August 9th, Michaels Corp let their employees leave to go protest. Us, a Republican administration, doing what we knew was a great response to a community who wanted to invest in Wisconsin, except, you know, we had this one flaw in our business climate. We fixed it, we freed workers, and Michaels protested. And they allowed their employees the day off to protest. So here you got a guy who says he's a Republican, but yet sends his workers for a free day off to protest. But, and that's not the only time that we fought our own party. I mean, as you might imagine, I fought my own party on many things. I want to eliminate the Wisconsin Elections Commission. The Speaker of the Wisconsin Assembly said he wants to keep the Wisconsin Elections Commission. I find it lawless and permanently flawed. I don't think that there is any rehab that you can do on that. And I think the mark of a good leader is the ability to recognize when things have gone awry and knowing that something just can't be reformed. It needs to be replaced. And it's time for that to go.
One thing that you talked about is getting people back to work and actually good paying jobs that way. Now, I never told you this story either. So when you guys were doing that and when you were lieutenant governor, now as a business owner that has a brand that we are based out of Wisconsin, and we're always going to stay based out of Wisconsin.
Proudly, right?
Yes, and it's like
proudly
very proudly.
Based out of Wisconsin.
That's why I fight so much politically in Wisconsin, because I want to be here and my family here the rest of our life and stuff like that. And then the nice thing is though, but when you guys were doing that and you crossed the rights to work, and then I watched when you were lieutenant governor, I watched when you talking about attracting people from Illinois. Now watch this. As a business owner, do you know where one of my major planning sources was now to open an office was? Pleasant Prairie.
I love that.
Because you know what? I knew that the people were going to cross the border just to live there. So as a person that employs a lot of people, I sat there and go, well, our government is working to bring in good people away from a state that is actually horrible. And no joke, we have an amazing office down there. People are like, why would you want to put down Pleasant Prairie? I said, I took the Wayne Gretzky quote. You know, why is he the greatest hockey player of all time? Because wasn't skating where the puck was, I was skating where the puck was going. And you guys were bringing business to that area. And now look at the Pleasant Prairie area right now.
Exactly. Booming.
Boom. One of the wealthiest areas in Wisconsin.
Exactly. And the reason is because we knew and identified that freeway arterial as a really good opportunity for us. And the Kenosha Area Business Association, which I really credit with a cool idea, started to convince business owners that they wanted to jump ship, move to greener pastures, north for freedom for these business owners. And they did. They started coming. But there were a lot of employees of these businesses who were like, oh, I don't know that I want to move. even though it's a short trip, up the road, they started to put employees of these companies on buses to do familiarization tours of Kenosha County. And they came up and they showed them the schools, they showed them the parks, they showed them housing opportunities. And they got folks familiar with what a great area Kenosha County was. And you started to convince not only these business owners, but also all these workers to move to Wisconsin. That is real and innovative talent attraction. One of the saddest things about Tony Evers' failed leadership is he took our Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation from a talent attraction agency and a business attraction agency, and he basically just shut it down. They don't do talent attraction at all anymore, and what they've done is they've made it into a government judgment agency that tells you that you're non-essential and you that you are essential. And it basically drove a wedge between Wisconsinites. It caused so many people to question their worth. We saw Joe Biden printing stimulus check after stimulus check, putting our kids on the hook for all of this money he was printing in the White House basement. And then Tony Evers was one of the last governors in America to pay people more money to sit on the sidelines than to jump back into the economy.
And that's one thing that it's like, as a business owner directly that way, you see, look at some of the states like Florida and Texas and South Dakota. Their governors have made the state very attractive.
Bingo.
And I want to say this. You say, what do you mean by attractiveness? It's not, trust me, there's not one business that doesn't pay tax. I love how they say, well, wealthy business owners don't pay tax. That's not true. We pay a very good percentage of tax that way. But what it does, you guys make it easier for us to operate within the state. And so when I saw you guys do that down there, I knew that you're going to attract good citizens to come in. We want to produce good paying jobs for people so they can actually have a good lifestyle. And then the cool thing is, but then that makes our state better. And you wonder why everybody wants to move to Florida and Texas and stuff because the weather.
Don't do that.
That's not
Don't,
true.
No.
But that's
Hold
not
on
true
a
though.
second.
Because
Bad
look at South
ice
Dakota.
Fishing,
Yes, that's
terrible
right.
ice fishing. Do not buy into what they are telling
But
you.
see, the public doesn't give Kristi Noem enough credit because the state has done well, but what has she done? She's taken the same civil liberties, civil rights, good policies for now. When they say business owners, guys, when a policy is good for people like us that are small business, even though we seem like we're large because we're international, what happens this? It allows us to actually bring in more employees and pay them more and do good stuff where it doesn't hog tie us where we have to move to a different state because we can't even afford to pay our bills for people to do. Guys, I gotta let you go because I gotta do everything for the government. And I can't, and all that money's got to go there instead of I can put in these guys' pockets.
Government needs to stop taking so much money. In Wisconsin right now, Doctor, we actually have a $3.8 billion surplus. That's not because of Tony Evers. That is because of the hard work of the small business owners and Wisconsin families working their tails off to produce that. That means we overpaid into state coffers. That's why, as your governor, I want to make work pay in our state. So Tony Evers has 123,000 additional people on welfare today, more than when I was lieutenant governor. That's a huge problem because we've got a worker crisis. There aren't enough people working, period. When you have that, you got to figure out ways to get those folks off of government programs and into the workforce so they can make money and contribute to the tax base, because if you have a broader tax base, then you can lower tax rates. The good news is this, though, guys. We have a surplus right now, which needs to be returned to the people. And so as your governor, we are going to gun toward a 0% tax rate. Same as Florida, same as Texas, these other states that are really attractive, particularly for seniors and Gen Z. And I know we're facing similar problems here. We're worried about our kids and where they're going to choose to settle. We want them to settle right next door to us, not in our basements, but, very, very near, so we can just drop in anytime because children love that, right? But they're looking at states where they have a very low or no income tax. So that's why I'm saying we're going to do welfare reform, get more people into the workforce, and then make work pay by allowing people to keep more of their own money. We're going to gun toward a 0% income tax. We're going to push everybody through the 3.54% income tax bracket. Flat income tax.
Yes.
Right now, you probably pay 7.65% income tax. A lot of you guys pay 7.65% income tax because we have a really progressive, a really stepped income tax in Wisconsin. We're going to do a flat tax. We're going to beat all of our surrounding states. We're going to be the winner. We're going to attract all the Gen Z workers. We're still going to have the best ice fishing in the world and the best deer hunting. And we are going to be a destination state again. Plus, we're going to stop taxing retirement income.
And plus, also, people realize, if you look at Pleasant Prairie, I want to use that example because you set me up as a business owner going, we have good government doing good policy things that allow us to open good business there, get good jobs for the people that work there that way. But, you know, do you remember what that place down Pleasant Prairie used to look like before you guys were in? It was I won't say it was a shithole. It was. When you guys brought your policy in, the developments got better. They look brand new. They're high class. So people realize that when policies like that, you make your neighborhood better. You actually make it look better. You have better stores. You have better things that, and communities like it's safer. You know, you go to Chicago right now. Sorry, 71 people died over 4th of July weekend. Their infrastructure, even it is, and it's like, and we're talking. They're only 20 miles from our border.
But I'm worried about Wisconsin. I'm worried about Wisconsin under Tony Evers because Tony Evers has ushered in a new era of skyrocketing violent crime. And in Wisconsin today, violent crime has risen 9% year over year. That's twice the national average. In Green Bay, 60% increase in the murder rate. Once again, we're on pace to eclipse our murder rate, which was another record last year in Milwaukee. There are more cars stolen in Milwaukee today than in Chicago. And all of this makes the entire state less safe. That's why I've said I'm going to put 1,000 more cops on the streets to make our streets safer. Changed tone at the top. I will respect our great law enforcement officers, and there's a reason I am law enforcement's choice for governor. I've been endorsed by the Milwaukee Police Association, the Kenosha Police Association Board, the Fraternal Order of Police, as well as more than half of Wisconsin's sheriffs. It's because they know that I have their back. And so they have mine. They know that we will do bail and sentencing reform to take away discretion from bad district attorneys and bad judges who just let bad guys go on the streets, revolving door of criminal justice. And a lot of it happens in Milwaukee County. So many people in this audience, because this is a global audience, and sadly this made global headlines, so many of you listening and watching saw the Waukesha Parade massacre. That man, Darrell Brooks, was let go on low bail by the Milwaukee County District Attorney's office. I'm going to fire the Milwaukee County District Attorney, and I will fire him on day one.
Nice, which is good. Because that will create great policy for the people of Waukesha, or something like that.
It's also going to create a culture, I think, among DAs, and we've got 72 counties in Wisconsin, saying, holy crap, you know, this woman's serious. And, you know, I'm going to lose my job if I don't shape up. And that accountability also needs to happen at the ballot box, which is why I work on recruiting more candidates, which is why I work on helping fund their candidacy so they can buy yard signs and they can buy literature. But we need to work as a team here, and I need your help getting me across the finish line on August 9th.
That's the key. So guys, August 9th, and let's put up the graphic down below. Remember, go to Rebecca's website, go to her Facebook pages and stuff like that. And the one thing that I've done, no joke, is I'm proud of this. And do you know we were trending on Twitter a little bit? Because I donated to you a bunch of money, and people are like, we're trending on Twitter that some crazy doctor gave you money.
That is political speech.
It's kind of funny.
You know, you put your money where your mouth is. You're too busy saving lives and helping people live healthier to run for governor yourself. And so I'm your proxy. I want to be your proxy. I'm going to take your constitutional beliefs to Madison with me. We are going to stop government growth, and we are going to stop these steamroller behaviors of your individual rights and liberties. We're going to give government back to the people, and that's what I am about.
Just like when I donated to your wonderful campaign, you kind of did the same thing when you guided a person to the right person for me to help them in the medical field, not to have to get a vaccine, and I purposely help them with our lawyers and stuff like that, to where they didn't have to do it. And what happens is, and that's why right now, go down below. I'm guiding you guys to donate. And here's what happens. You don't have to be from Wisconsin to donate. And let me tell you why. Because the policy he's talking about, if you think about it this way, Ron DeSantis is probably one of the most famous governors in history. And he's talked about, and think about his topics, civil rights and civil liberties, and giving control back to the people. Before Ron DeSantis existed in government, Rebecca was there before already doing this stuff.
Well, think
and
about
you were,
it.
but you were just in the secondary, yeah.
Wisconsin was the destination.
It was.
You know, we were ground zero
Yes.
for great conservative
Yep.
reform. Everyone
Yep.
was looking
Yeah, you guys.
to Wisconsin.
Yep.
Now, obviously, with Tony Evers here, you know, it's not an admirable situation.
So that's what I figure you're going to win, and then probably Trump or DeSantis is going to win president, and then we're just going to transition you right over to take over after them. Sound good?
Oh my gosh, doctor, I've told you I do not like Washington, D.C.
Yes.
You guys,
But the
here's the deal.
policies are good there as they are in Wisconsin.
Well,
So-
what we need is somebody who is passionate and has spent a life in developing public policy that
Yes.
works. And, you know, this is my third career. I
Yes.
was a journalist
Yes.
in my first career, and then I transitioned to the most rewarding career
TV.
there is out there, stay-at-home mom.
Yes.
And small business owner. I owned a small
Yep.
media and marketing company.
Yep.
And then my third career, which has been public policy. And so I know how to do this.
Yep.
I've done it once before.
Yep.
We fixed a broken government. We brought it back from the brink. We can do it again. I remember how the pieces go together. We're going to build it back fast, build a firm foundation in those first 100 days, and we're going to run fast
Yes,
again.
we are. Yes, we are. And you'll put the right people in place to make that happen. We believe in you. Like I said, we're going to do everything we can to get you. I can't wait to call you a day after election and say congratulations.
It's gonna be
and stuff
really
like that,
good.
because really what happens is congratulations to you. It's a congratulations to that mom, that dad, that mom, that thing, and for everybody back in Wisconsin, because
It's a
it puts
victory
right-
for medical
That's it.
freedom, too.
Yes.
I mean, don't forget,
Yep.
I was the one out there,
Yep.
you know, leading the press conference and the
Yes.
protest outside the Eau Claire Mayo
Yep.
Clinic. Those nurses who were devastated and scared, frankly. A lot of people, cops around the country, devastated and scared.
Yep.
Why are folks being forced to choose between making a living,
Yep.
literally putting food on their family's table, and medical treatment
Yep.
that they may not feel is right for them? Why are moms now being told that the right thing, by the state of Wisconsin,
Yeah.
by the way? I mean, you saw those DHS Instagram
Yep.
posts.
Oh, yeah.
That the right thing, you're only good mom if you do this.
Yep.
I just think that that's not government's business.
Yep.
That's not in the Constitution to be pushy on medical treatments. This is the same reason I had a problem with Obamacare. You know, what is the government doing stepping in between you and your family and a healthcare provider or anybody else you choose to be in that room when you're making decisions about your life and your longevity?
Yep. And one thing I want to end on today that I think was when I was, and I always knew what your policies were, but there was one thing that other Republican candidates failed upon, and you're the only one that answered it correct for me. And this was when COVID was there, and Evers put all this stuff. And I made it public about this, and it was kind of cool how you answered it, because you'd be surprised how many some state representative Republican answered it totally wrong. Is it said in there, it said if you were part of the government, you didn't have to follow some of those policies when it talked about the essentials and that. Remember that? And guess what happens? And you said this to me, and because remember, I was drilling you, I was getting to know you in detail, because I knew your policies, I followed you for that way, but I got to know you personally, and I started drilling the questions. And you said this, and this is why it was a clear point from that I knew she was the one. It was because you said, what's good for the people is good for us in government. Which means what the fact is, listen, you're not going to portray that there's two separations, that the government gets special treatment of COVID restrictions, stuff like that, over the people. And when you said that, I said, listen, right there, because as I brought up before, which we didn't talk about before till this interview, was I was very saddened that you, even as lieutenant governor, had to go up against Republicans when you were really, and that's why I'm not a party person, even though obviously, I'm supporting you as a Republican. But the idea is this, is they will say things, but then behind closed doors, their actions don't dictate that way. And so, and I've seen that when you were lieutenant governor, you were standing up for the people, and that's what happens going forward. And I know that everybody can trust you, so I trust her. And trust me, and you guys know what I've been through for the last couple of years with government even pushing back on us when I was just fighting for your right to choose that way. And so I believe that we only have one candidate right now that stands up for choice, and that's you.
Thank
and so
you.
we appreciate you.
Thank you, Doctor.
And thanks. So once again, guys, we're going to put up a graphic that way. Go there. I don't care if you're from Florida, Europe, or anything like that. This woman actually deserves your support.
No Europe.
Because what's that?
No Europe.
No Europe?
No, Florida.
Oh, Florida. There you go. Anywhere.
Anywhere
support.
in the U.S.
No, but share her information. There you go. And so like, do
share
everything
it.
you can.
If you know people in
Yes.
Wisconsin, urge them to vote August 9th.
Yes.
It is just that important.
That's easy. Yep.
Because no backroom deals.
Yep.
You know, I'm a former journalist.
Yes.
Here. I'm a recovering
Investigative.
journalist.
Yes.
And I think one of the most important things that we can do is expose waste, fraud, and abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a primary opponent who literally said there was no waste in the Department of Transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you,
There's a
as
lot.
your former lieutenant governor, there is plenty.
Yes.
And one administration cannot completely clean out, generations of waste, fraud, and abuse. It takes constant work.
Yep.
Just because of the human condition,
Yep.
it takes constant work to make us better. Same can be said of government. So let's just get better
Yep.
and let's make the right choice. Let's properly vet people. Let's illustrate policy differences. Let's acknowledge that there is waste in the Department of Transportation,
Yes.
and let's choose someone who actually wants to reduce the size of government, won't increase the gas tax, wants to give you more of your own money so you can fight Bidenflation from within your own family budget, and is actually going to be pro-kid and not say that we need to put teachers first, but say we need to put children first in education. I can answer questions about the Second Amendment. I'm from Wisconsin and I'm a sportsman, and so I'm pretty confident in where I stand. I can answer questions about my tax plan. I want people to look at my record. I want people to evaluate what I have said and the promises that I have made and kept. The best indication of what you will do in the future is what you have done in the past. And in the past, I've made promises, kept them, been a proven conservative reformer. Let's do it again.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you so much for being here
Thank
today.
you.
That way, for you guys, once again, go to the website, follow, support her, and we will see you guys next time. And like I said, hopefully we'll have you back when you're governor.
That
That'd
sounds
be great.
good. I would love that.
All right, guys, have a great day. Thank you, Rebecca, for just a wonderful time spent with us yesterday as we recorded that, and she had to go do many speaking events after that, and then today. And the one thing that I said is you can see that I consistently talk about to all the candidates that I support, it's all about just two things. Just think about civil liberties and civil freedoms and civil rights. It's just all those things are so important to me because, once again, the legacy that we have is based on the people that we leave behind. And one day my daughters will be left behind. I'll no longer be here. I'm hoping to leave a better Wisconsin and a better America for them than what we have. And we have it great, but we want to make it better on a regular basis. And that all it comes with freedom, right? Now, that being said, that kind of freedom, that kind of show, that kind of things that we did, we're going to get into my last 10%. Now, my final thoughts are something that I believe is why a different perspective actually exists. Because as you saw in the beginning of the show, I had a father reach out to me for their 30-year-old daughter who was suffering greatly. I'm going to reach out and going to do some things. But the nice thing is, the reason why that they reached out is because, once again, they had a brother say, listen, that they were helped by us. And so it's nice because it allows us an opportunity to shed some light on some things that people are suffering from, and that we may be able to put them in the right direction and get their health back on track. This next email that I want to share with you is, believe it or not, is why I do the show and what happens, because if you see what this next individual has done, it gives me great hope that when people really understand health and what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to attain it, they'll get downright pushy, and I like this. So let's take a look at it. Here we go. It's, once again, an email. I covered up all the information from it that way for somebody, but it's conditioned to talk about the thyroid. And here we go. Hi, Doc. I appreciate what you are putting out there, putting out here in the community. You are really educating us moms and equipping us with the whole toolbox. My 15-year-old daughter is having some issues, and I'm playing hell to get the necessary tests done on her. I'd like to share with you a letter I just sent to my daughter's pediatrician. I don't have much faith that I will get proper testing done, but at least they know that I know. And for you, I owe it all to you. Here's the letter. Okay, now right there, just even before I got that, I was like, okay, listen, this wonderful individual obviously watches the show. She's actually taken and probably watched our videos that are on our website, thewellnessway.com, and start to really empower herself to go, hey, listen, if you're looking at thyroid, if you're looking at any condition, you're looking at autoimmune, looking at any topic that we cover, there's ways to investigate very differently. Like I said, that's the idea. It's having a perspective that's significant when it comes to trying to figure out what people are going through. The young lady that's been sick since she's 30 and are sick all the way to her 30 years and having lung issues. If you stay with the same perspective, the people that are guiding you, you're going to end up with the same result. So therefore, this young lady having her mom investigate so much of the stuff that's going on with thyroid, it was great that she actually continued to push her doctor in order to do what's right. So let's continue with it that way. And it says, good morning, doc. And I didn't want to expose the doctor's name, so I got rid of the doctor's name. I had my daughter seen by one of your other doctors today. I was really worried about her thyroid and her T4 direct being low. TSH looked normal, so the doctor insisted that her thyroid was okay. I still felt uncomfortable about that. We are a family history of endocrine problems, beginning with me, my mother, hypothyroid, my father, pituitary tumor, hypothyroid, also sister, thyroid cancer, thyroid removed, hypothyroid. If you look at all 4 of her labs, TSH, T3, T4, you see everything is in the right range except for T4 direct. That is a marker telling me something is malfunctioning, but your doctor told me I was wrong. See, that's one thing, guys. I want you to understand that when you educate yourself and when you empower yourself about the information we give you and they tell you it's okay, it's not okay. Just because they give you an opinion does not mean they're right. Let me say that. See, I always tell people, get people's opinions. People realize if you look at any healthcare condition, you understand that everything a doctor gives you, I don't care if it's on your thyroid, I don't care if it's on SARS-CoV-2, I don't care if it's on the pandemic, okay, it's all opinions. It's all opinions. That's all it is. Because you know why? If you don't like their opinion, you go get a second opinion, third opinion. But the first thing they gave you was actually an opinion. That's why I like how people talk about there's so many facts. And I'm like going, well, you know, it's quite interesting how things change. And if you look at her T4 being low, it's like, listen, her T4 being low is not good. But the doctor says, no, there's nothing wrong. And she's like, well, no, you're wrong. And the doctor's then saying, well, you're wrong. Well, then guess what happens? They go a little bit deeper. Here it is. She did refer her to an allergist. I feel something is triggering my child's body to causing the malfunction and food allergy. Testing is going to be a scientific approach to find out what it is. I know there are 4 types of allergies, type 1, 2, 3, and 4, so I hope she is able to test them all. Oh my goodness. This mom right here is just extremely impressive because that's why when people say, well, doc, you have IgE allergies and then you have sensitivities. That's not true. That's not true at all. That makes no immunological sense. So if you see a functional medicine practitioner, if you see an integrative practitioner, if you see a medical doctor say, okay, there's allergies or sensitivities, then they do not understand allergies or the human body or the immune system because there is no classification of sensitivities. They all are hypersensitivities. There's type 1, 2, 3, and 4 and deals with different parts of the immune system. So that's why people say, well, there's sensitivities. I don't even know what that means because that's just a made up word that's trying to fit into a medical paradigm that they're trying to get us to accept. And it can't do that because it doesn't make any sense when it comes to the human body. All right. I saw that because today I asked your doctor to please do a digestive and absorption, inflammatory, immune, metabolic markers, other bacteria, and a whole bunch of tests going on, parasitology, a stool test to look for pneumatitis and yeast, and anything that could point to why her breath smells bad, with perfect dental hygiene, because she's a dental hygienist, her body odor that smells toxic regarding the daily baths and deodorants. There's a gut problem and it's triggering and affecting your body. The doctor said you had to have diarrhea every day to have a parasite. Once again, gave you false information. You have to have diarrhea every day to have a parasite. Oh my goodness. The doctor shouldn't say anything. He should just keep his mouth shut. See, that's the thing. He should just say, I don't know much about it. Do you see him? People come to me and say, Doc, should I have cataract surgery? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know much about it. I can understand some things that cause cataracts, but I don't know about surgery. You know what I'm saying? So go ask the surgeon. Go ask somebody that actually knows what they do and do it, or go ask somebody that's even had cataract surgery, what their experience was. So let's keep on going on. Here we are. Where to go? Parasites. And that is not true at all, because I see parasites at children's full intact log stools. My daughter had got C. diff 10 years ago, and her gut and stool have not been the same since. Putting her gut eats cooked fish, fresh picked fruits. Why would I think she could not have parasites? Okay, your doctor said third world countries sit in mango trees, eat fruit for all day for trees, and they need warming, but we do not. That again, not true, because our kids are feral too. I kind of find that funny. That's like, listen, only third world countries get parasites. That is definitely not true. That is, I don't know how they could even say that to the individual. It just shows that this doctor, this pediatrician, does not know what they are talking about. All right, here we go. Anything I failed to mention that is really important in the thyroid temperature regulation, and a good way to know if you are experiencing hypothyroidism is to check your temperature upon waking before getting out of bed, the basal temperature, and up at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The morning, her basal temperature is well below normal upon waking, and at your office today, it was below. If we did a stool testing, well below normal, and that was at 3 p.m. in time frame. So her basal body temperature was 97.7, 97.6 today at your office. If we just did a stool testing for all that I mentioned above, then we could possibly get to the root cause of the malfunction and restore her body to great health. I know I'm asking a lot, and you are the professional, and I'm just the worried mom that has studied hormones 20 years now. Our family has faced endocrine trauma, and I feel my daughter is symptomatic enough to warrant a stool test, yeast, parasites, and other thyroid panels with all the ones included there, which obviously you can tell she looked at our thyroid panel, DHT, everything. If one of these tests are abnormal, that's your indication that something isn't working properly, and most often is due to an allergy or some sort of inflammation. Where's her CD3 or CD8 doing? Her estrogens, all of the E's. Your doctor did send her out to a gyno, so hopefully we get the female panel looked at. My daughter complained of some heavy periods, 3 super tampons an hour, irregular periods, extreme cramping. All of that points to a thyroid problem. Something has disrupted her hormones, and I just beg to you to study her a little closer and do the testing respectfully. Now, as you can see here, as we continue on, see the second part of it at the end. Here we go, respectfully. I covered the name, but here we go. And here's what she wrote after the letter she sent to the doctor. I already told them, if you won't order them, then I will. Thanks again, Doc. Keep giving this world a different perspective. That right there, once again, if you think about how she so eloquently talked to her doctor, talked about the labs that are needed, talked about all the things that are needed, guess what happens? It was absolutely incredible. I'm so proud of this individual taking not only her, but her daughter's health into her own hands, because you're right. This is not a joke, guys. You saw from the first email to this email, is the reason why different perspectives out there is because if you trust your doctor, you're going to find out that you will be just as sick as everybody else. That's not a joke. This woman noticed that her daughter's T4 was not normal. She wouldn't accept the fact that they would say it's okay, because it's not okay. Because with a person having T4 like that, it's going to stem to other healthcare problems besides what she's even going now. At least being 15 years old, if things are properly taken care of, once again, this young lady can reverse those things and live a very healthy life. If not, she will continue to get worse and degenerate and have a lot worse problems. As you can see, this mom is looking for a different perspective, and she found it. So that's why it's so important right now. No joke, if you're on the Wellness Way page right now, share this. The show is very important. If you're on YouTube, like it, let people know. When you like it and actually subscribe to our channel, actually guess what happens? Our ranks go up and you get to see it more in normal feeds that way. It's important for people to get this different perspective, because this is what I get daily, okay? This was something that just came through recently, actually this morning, actually no joke, this morning. And so guess what happens? We're gonna reach out, we're gonna guide this person even more, and if the doctor doesn't get the labs done, then hopefully she will find an office like ours that will do them to actually guide this young 15-year-old into a much better direction than what she's getting right now. And as I told you before, look at the things the doctor incorrectly told the parent. Most parents would have believed that doctor, but the doctor is very wrong. So that doctor and that people that doctor sees, the sad part is this. People wonder why we're so sick. People wonder why that 30-year-old is actually so sick, is because they're guided by people that don't have the right perspective. And if we did have the right perspective, guess what happened? We wouldn't be sitting here on a regular basis having this show, because we'd all have it right already. So that being said, guys have a beautiful week. I got a little traveling to do this upcoming week, but we will see you on the next show. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn. Thank you so much for watching A Different Perspective today. Have a great afternoon. Hey, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single video or live stream. Also, share this video with a friend. Once again, thank you for watching.